We're through with mysticism, so we're going to go to Thoreau. We are uh, going straight to chapter 5, which could be good because it's Walden. What is it? What is it? Walden? Is it you? It's the road, the making of Walden, part 2. It's part 2 of the book in chapter 5. 1845 to 1847. This is Thoreau, a life.
Is that a different book of Thoreau you
The same
have?
one. Why, here is Walden, the same woodland lake that I discovered so many years ago. I cannot almost say, Walden, is it you? That's Henry David Thoreau from Walden, Preparations. So now we're talking preparations to Walden. Emerson was right. The railroad changed everything. Once passenger service opened in June 1844, running 4 trains daily from sunrise to dusk, Concord would forever be a Boston suburb. The tracks curved northward just enough to graze the southwest edge of Concord Village, opening up a commuter rail hub centered on the new Concord Depot. Overnight, the nearby farm fields were being platted and sold as house lots. New lands for the landless, including John and Cynthia Thoreau. After 6 years renting the Parkman house, it was time, thought Cynthia, to move into their own home. John was skeptical, but Cynthia prevailed. She selected a 3/4-acre lot by the tracks in the bare fields of what everyone jokingly called Texas. After the barren, faraway, and disputed territory dominating the headlines, Cynthia arranged to buy one of Concord's solid, well-built houses and have it moved onto the site. Common practice then, which saved immense sums in labor and conserved scarce wood. On September 10th, John Thoreau paid $25 to the developer of the farmland. 2 days later, he mortgaged the property for $500 to pay for the house and supplies. Henry got to work digging and stoning the cellar, helping the carpenter with renovations, banking the house, and setting out an orchard's worth of apples. With the Irish workers moving up the line, John Staples was auctioning off the vacant railroad shanties. The Thoreaus recycled a couple into a pencil factory and shop behind the house. Early in 1849, Henry would survey for the new road out front, eventually named Belknap Street after one of the railroad developers, but the house would always be known as the Texas House. It must be because it's like remote from the town or something, because it's far away. The Thoreaus moved in sometime early in 1845 and lived there until 1850. Even after they moved back to Main Street, they held on to the Texas House, renting it to newcomers. Near the end of his life, Henry, who was always fond of the place, boasted that he'd harvest nearly 11 barrels of apples from the trees he'd planted there 14 years before. Yes, pride of apple harvesting. Land speculators were eyeing Walden Woods, too. No. Late in September 1844, Emerson celebrated turning in the final proofs of his essays, second series, by taking a walk to Walden Pond. There he ran into several men bidding on Wyman Field, an overgrowth patch alongside Walden Road, with a side road running through it to Walden's shore. One thing led to another, and Emerson walked home, the owner of 11 acres of briar patch, at $8 an acre, $8.10 an acre. The next day, his friends pointed out the briar patch was worthless without the neighboring pine grove, which the owner surely would cut soon. So Emerson bought 3 or 4 more acres for $125, more expensive thanks to the timber. Thus Emerson became landlord or waterlord of 14 acres, more or less on the shore of Walden. Just the place to build a cabin or a turret there high as the treetops, and spend my nights as well as days in the midst of a beauty which never fades from me. Now he had land fever. He thought of building a cottage for Lucy Brown near his house, and buying a farm for Ellery Channing, who was pining away in New York working for the New York Tribune. Plus buying a little more Walden for himself. A year later, Emerson purchased another 40 acres, rising from Walden's farther shore to the heights everyone took to calling Emerson's Cliff. From there, he could see Monadnock to the north. That's a mountain. Washasett to the west, and the Sudbury River below. Perfect, thought Bronson Alcott, for a poet's lodge, where Emerson could retreat with book and pen when good hours come. The idea was not new. Thoreau had dreamed of living in a cabin by a pond ever since his idyllic summer with Wheeler, reading and writing in a shanty overlooking Flint's Pond, a dream he shared with Margaret Fuller as far back as the autumn of 1841. Summer houses, writers' shanties, and wilderness retreats were all the rage. In December 1843, even as Thoreau was packing up on Staten Island, his city friends, Giles Waldo and William Tappan, were packing up to move into a log cabin deep in the upstate New York wilderness. Undeterred by December snows, they planned to hunt and live off the land, as Emerson optimistically called Fuller, quote, "In that wild, boundless country, find words for their dreams." It didn't turn out quite that way. The log cabin proved so cold and drafty they couldn't write at all. Waldo's feet were frostbitten, and Tappan huddled so close to the fire that he burned his feet and had to find a doctor. Their bold experiment collapsed after a mere 6 weeks. No wonder, wrote Charles Lane, still stinging from the collapse of Fruitlands. The experiment of a true wilderness life by a white person could be nothing more than an interesting dream. Do you think white people are able to do it? He is not born for it. He is not natured for it. For true progress to the soul, one must look in some new direction. Ellery Channing thought he had found that new direction. At the end of April 1845, tired of stewing away in New York City, he laid out $600 for a farm on Concord's Punkatasset Hill. That September, he moved in with his family. To his bachelor friend Thoreau, he suggested something similar. Quote, "I see nothing for you in this earth but that field which I once christened Briars. Go out upon that. Build yourself a hut, and there begin the grand process of devouring yourself alive. I see no alternative, no other hope for you." Eat yourself up. You will eat so nobody else, nor anything else. Thoreau talked it over with Emerson. He had found a site on Flint's Pond, but Flint had denied him permission to build. Now here was another chance. Sometime early in 1845 they shook hands. Thoreau, not Emerson, would build his Poet's Lodge by Walden's shore. Thoreau, who no doubt reminded Channing that farms are more easily acquired than gotten rid of, was content to claim nothing more than squatters' rights. In exchange, he agreed to clear and plant the cultivatable land and sell his house back to Emerson, who meanwhile would build his own Poet's Lodge high on the cliff. Thoreau obligingly drew up some plans for him, to which Alcott added his own design for a tower. There was room enough in the wide woods for each of them to forge his own way. Very good. I think that's an interesting. We were reading The Road to Walden Pond. What? Emerson's involved in the making of Walden. Chapter 5, Walden. The Road to Walden Pond. We're reading in a very nice book. Reads pretty well. Thoreau, A Life by Laura Dassow Walls. We read up to page 184 in chapter 5.